Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Sports Scientist Podcast. Over here we have my friend Quinn Henoch, because he's beautiful. Look at this guy. He's like the most beautiful cock I've ever seen in my life. And then your hostess with the mostest body fat I've ever seen in my life, Dr. Mike Israel, PhD in snacks and food and shit. And then to my immediate right over here, we have a Dr. Hoffman, PhD in home improvement and Home Depot. You're welcome.
That was a wonderful intro.
That was a great intro, folks. And introducing the cast, as always, is our dear friend, super trainer from the New York City, United States on planet Earth. He has a number of advanced degrees, including a registered dietitian's license in fasting medicine, an MD also in fasting, and a PhD in autophagy as a result of fasting. Autophagy. So, Quinn, thank you so much for wasting your time with us.
I appreciate it.
I love when we get to present with Quinn. I always watch your talks, and like their sense of humor is always so good.
As he politely refutes a whole lot of nonsense.
We always like tiptoe when people ask kind of bad questions. We're like, oh, maybe.
On the one hand,
just
you're
like,
right.
No.
There's a lot of frustration.
I love it.
Well, if people are wrong, they should know that they're wrong so they can be less wrong as soon as possible.
That would be the
That's
idea.
an excellent response.
Thanks, God.
Yeah, Quinn knows it all, everybody. So, to the questions.
These are going to be good.
Folks, several years ago, a miraculous device was invented. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I am so thrilled that you exist, because the questions that we get all the time, we have no fucking clue to answer. And we say, there's actually a guy who knows all about this. This guy. We just refer to all the time.
And now that you're here, we're not going to make use of you at all because it's all going to be jokes. So, folks, several years back, a device was manufactured, created, that made all of our lives infinitely better. It was called Instagram. And into that jar we dip. Quinn, like...
My life is actually tanked.
Greater good, my friend. The greater good. Because people will be asking you questions. Now, to continue from the last time we recorded, I will just simply ask all of these questions off of Instagram in European guy voice.
Oh, God, again.
Or
Can we
want
do
Jewish guy
Facebook
voice?
questions or like...
Change the voice, man.
Okay, so I got a good Russian guy. I got a good Jewish guy. I got Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump's a creepy...
Let's do Jewish guy.
Jewish guy?
Yeah.
All right. So, first question. Beachinor from Instagram.
Sounds like a He-Man character.
At Beachinor?
No, I guess, yeah. What's your approach to an athlete that tends to be injury prone? Prone. How do you balance injury prevention with overload training? How does the athlete approach training as they get older? Quinn, help.
Do I do a voice or is this just me?
No, you
I
just do you.
If there's a voice, you have someone somewhere deep inside that you haven't shown the
Satan's
internet.
voice.
I forgot the question.
Athletes who are injury prone.
What do you do if you have an athlete that tends to be injury prone? How do you balance injury prevention with overload training? How does the athlete approach training as they get older? So let's just take the first question.
Yeah.
I think that people make a distinction between injuries and training as if they're different. And there's nothing different about rehab in the midst of injury. It's just simply that your MRV is lower, or you're starting at a different level, being able to tolerate certain amounts of training. But it's likely that you were injured because your training dose was not appropriate to your capacity. And then to mitigate injury risk, reduce injury risk, you just have to find, like you just spoke on this 10 minutes ago, James, is finding recovery touch points and these inflection points. So you can't predict injury or prevent injury. You can reduce its risk by training within your appropriate means. And I think that people just don't do that. And they don't do that for long periods of time. And then chronic issues become conditioned. It becomes their conditioned normal, right? To feel these. And then your mind gets fucked. You start thinking like, oh, what's wrong with me that that I'm getting hurt? Is it my left ankle doesn't have 5 degrees of dorsiflexion that's causing my right shoulder to lack internal rotation?
That's actually our next question.
And that's why my back hurts? Or is it simply that I was training beyond my recoverable capacity for many, many months, in a row and things compound. So the short answer is you need to find the triggers that cause your symptoms. So the movements themselves, is it an intensity trigger, a volume trigger, and then you need to dose down from there, and then probably spread your progression out longer. So you need to look at what is the percentage increase that you're jumping from week to week. Spread that out a little bit so that slope line is a little bit more parallel with the ground instead of this crazy spike, which I'm actually going to talk about here in about an hour. It's just leveling out the curves in your training. That's probably the best I could do without knowing anything about.
That's a great answer.
Yeah.
I've been is one of the predictors of injury rate is the degree of training ramping that occurs. Like if you're not training a lot and you quickly go to a lot, you will get hurt much more often than not.
Totally. And they're looking at these things called acute to chronic workload ratios, where they're looking at the microcycle. What work are you doing right now compared to the work that you've done over the past 1-2 mesocycles? So essentially your preparation for the point at which you're training now. Have you prepared for this particular microcycle, or have you just spiked your training for whatever reason, not prepared for that? You're increasing risk. Nothing may happen. You could be Wolverine, but you're increasing risk. And the same goes the other way. If you take time completely off, if you go on vacation for a month and you come back like, oh shit, I got to make up for lost time, or I just want to see where I'm at, and you try to spike training, increasing risk. And then people wonder why.
Well, we found in our collegiate studies, the highest periods for collegiate athletes, the periods where they are most susceptible to being injured, was after break periods.
Totally.
And
you decondition.
Yeah. They decondition. They don't do any training while they're gone. And then Coach Derp throws the book at them when they get back to school. Like, time to get back in shape, idiot.
I played college football at this little teeny tiny school in Indiana. But I guarantee you that 90% of the kids' hardest off-season training was the first week that they came back.
Oh yeah,
for training camp in August. 3 weeks before the first game, the hardest they had trained in the past 3 months, and they just get obliterated. That's what you see with these NFL injury rates. If they can get past preseason, the chances of injury dramatically decrease. Just getting through that first month is like a crazy filter, because that's where most of the hamstring pulls happen. All these little just acute, load greater than capacity, because they just didn't train. And especially with the professional athletes, like a lot of their training is dog shit, because they hire these like famous.
Pause.
Yeah.
Justin Gosselin asks, why is there seemingly so much buffoonery in the NBA, NFL, MLB strength and conditioning?
Perfect.
They're old boys clubs.
Well, no, I think so. First of all, if you're a strength and conditioning coach in the professional ranks, you're looking over your shoulder every day.
Yes.
When am I going to lose my job? Essentially, the turnover rate's just crazy fast. So that's number one. Number two is, so you're always looking for like the next innovation. Like, what's the thing that's going to make it seem like I'm innovative and like trying the best strategies? And number two, you're probably terrified to not hurt this $100 million asset that you got in front of you. Like, okay, back squats may really help him, but what if his knee starts hurting because of back squats? And then he tells, I'm fired. Yeah. Immediately, I'm gone. Right? So there's that. Like, and then number two, a lot of these professional athletes hire private trainers in their off season. So they see them more than strength and conditioning coach. And the private trainers are like Instagram gurus. So it's going to go back to, what is the thing that looks the coolest?
Battle ropes.
Yeah, just on the Bosu ball.
Stability.
Well, because the guys, the athletes themselves, when they make the hiring decisions, I mean, they're athletes. They're not educated to make hiring decisions about strength and conditioning coaches. So they'll hire anyone that looks appealing, and they can get scammed pretty easily.
There was a running back, and somebody may know much better background story than me, but Arian Foster, running back for the Houston Texans, was an amazing running back, but it seemed like every year, hamstring. And I think, if I remember correctly, his brother was his trainer, and his brother didn't have the background. So they were not preparing. They're just doing whatever, bullshit. And hamstring injuries are one of those things that's like, that is preventable to some extent. Like, train your muscles to withstand the loads that you're going to see on the field. And if they don't, then that's what happens. You would think.
It's crazy. And it's like a bunch of fucking Coach Derp old boys. You get so many people who are unqualified in there, and they just had someone that they knew, like, oh, I know this guy. Like, they get the job over people who are highly qualified. It drives me nuts.
And here's $750,000. Thank you.
Yes, exactly.
I just sent you an article from the Wall Street Journal about that, about strength coaches just fucking up athletes and getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars.
But if they're big and raw, and there you go.
Yeah.
Hurrah.
And even stuff like hamstring stuff, right? It's like you can't expect your athlete who has not done a sprint for 3 months to now go into full effort sprinting. That's something that can be ameliorated with just doing like 1 or 2 mesos of technique work, a little submaximal movements,
Well, there's even with things like Nordic curls and like Romanian deadlifts, these types of things, like they can measure protective fat, like the effect of those things stay around for a while. So it's like you said, you don't have the repeated bout effect is a thing. Like you don't have to do that stuff all that long or all that often to get the benefit.
Yeah. Just
some of it. They do nothing. It's crazy. Crazy.
What do you got over here? You got a smirk on your face.
Aniet136 asks, Quinn Henoch, what are some good mobility exercises for crooked bar on the back during squat? My hips hurt during the bottom part of the squat in the hole. An impinging sensation, but doesn't really hurt during other areas on flexion. What could be the cause?
I like the way that she says my name.
Did I say it wrong?
No, it was good.
I should have done European girl. Oh, Quinn, monogamy doesn't matter much to me, so let's get things going, yeah?
So the crooked bar thing is like, I always have to ask the question with the whole asymmetry scene is, does it matter? Because you could look, if you're watching anybody squat from a different, whatever angle you're looking at deadlift, you could pick out these little nuances that you see. Yes. Oh, the bar's a little lower here, shoulder's a little more rotated on there. I'm shifting all these things. Sorry, I'm boring you, Mike. Mike just yawned.
I fucking hate
like
this shit.
Big yawn.
I hate training science and all that shit.
So part of it is like, who cares? We're humans. We're naturally asymmetrical. We have dominant patterns. Sometimes it just doesn't matter. So my question is like, the crooked bar thing may just be a nuance of being a human, and if it's not affecting your performance,
I have a crooked bar. My hips are fine. I've had a crooked bar for 18 years.
Sure, yeah, and if it's not affecting your performance, you don't literally feel off balance, then it's probably not an issue, or I may not intervene. And then to try to link it to injury even becomes more murky, because is it the side that I'm leaning to, but it's actually my other hip that hurts? So why is that? Is it because that glute doesn't fire? Like you start going down the rabbit hole so deep, you spin yourself out. So the crooked bar thing, I don't necessarily think it needs to be corrected unless it's like driving you to the other side to the point where you're losing balance at higher intensities. It's affecting your performance. With that said, the easiest thing to do is take the exact movement in which it happens. Usually at higher intensities, you'll see these types of little quirks intensify. Like with the heavier loads, your body will kind of like sink into the pattern a little deeper. So find the intensity inflection point at which your body starts to do the wonky thing, and then get your technique work or your lighter days or your warm-up sets, lots of them, just underneath that technique threshold. And then that practice will start to carry over into your more conditioned normal. It's just because skill, like anything else, any other motor skill that you would learn. You find where you're fucking up, and then you backtrack a step or two, and then you practice. And before you know it, your body will normalize at higher percentages. And then number two, there's the anecdotal, like, maybe there is a weakness difference from side to side, and you are pushing into one leg more than the other. You can do some unilateral stuff. I mean, you can load single leg press and split squats relatively heavy and just try to feel the position. There's some of that proprioceptive stuff of literally trying to feel what it's like to drive with both legs into the floor, and then you take that right into the bilateral squat, try to recreate it. Sometimes that has an effect, sometimes it doesn't. That may not normalize your bar tilt, Mike, and
sometimes you just line up under the bar wrong.
Yeah, sometimes you're just crooked. Right. You just need somebody to tell you you're like 6 inches to the left. And you're like, oh, okay, I'll fix that. With the pain, could be a completely separate conversation, because you could have a perfectly observable symmetrical bar and still experience pain, or you could have a bar that's crooked as fuck and then you don't feel anything and you're perfectly fine, right? So that's kind of a separate deal. If your hips are pinching at the bottom of a squat, the tissues have simply become sensitized to the position, and you've been training with too much. It's just too much load. It's too much training load. You have not recovered, and your tissues are now singing to you about it. So the easiest thing to do, again, is find a metric, look back at your training logs, hopefully you have them, see overall training volume, absolute intensities, just start chopping some off the top. You don't have to not train, because we've already talked about that increases risk, but 5 to 10% overall training volume, overall intensity. I'd be surprised if you did then see a reduction in sensitivity over the course of 3 or 4 weeks. Number 2, you could also decrease the range of motion. Like, it's not that bad to say, if my hips pinch really bad at the very, very, very bottom of the squat, let me just cut it off just short of that feeling. And a lot of people are still burying their squats. Like, I know nothing about this person, and maybe she already squats high, and shortening the range of motion would then lead to no adaptation. But in general, it's not bad to, in the short term, reduce the range of motion to the tolerable ranges. Your body will chill, Mother Nature will do her thing, and you'll be better. Also, tempo work. I like tempo work because it's self-limiting in intensity. So let's say your hips hurt the worst when it's heavier, like, go lighter, but also you can slow the tempo down, so then now those lighter weights have a higher internal rating of intensity. Mm-hmm. So you get a little bit more of a training effect. You increase the time under the bar with the lighter load. So it's not like ideal to get your strongest, but it's still a way to get work in, staying kind of sub-threshold.
It works for hypertrophy pretty well.
Yeah, totally.
Fan-freaking-tastic.
I feel like I'm being too serious.
Your answers, it's good to have a little. It's good to have a little serious every now and again. I'm sure we'll go back.
I appreciate the serious shit.
Well, Max
I thought that's
what did Max talk about?
Killing goats.
You don't want to know. Porn tapes and shit. That motherfucker's fucked up.
Yeah,
you need to help your boy.
That's why he was spilling. He's just can't.
He's addicted to porn and goats.
Porn addict. Action Preston.
Action Preston.
I was going to do the nerd voice, but I think it's got to be. This guy wanted to be an action star, but he got like the whitest white boy frat name ever. They're like, come with me if you want to live. This your first time in Berlin? Yeah, here's a gun. What's your name? Preston. Like, you're going to die, dude. The East Germans are not as nice.
Wait, was that this guy's backstory? You just made that
that's
up?
His name.
You just made it
yeah,
up.
no, I sure hope that's not his backstory.
His real name is Tristan.
Tristan
Or Skylar, yeah.
Skylar's pretty tough.
Skylar. I knew a Skylar. He was tough.
He was like, pause.
He was tough.
This is live.
Hope you're not watching this, Skylar.
Yeah. He's almost certainly not. We have 3 people that watch the show.
Quinn banged your girlfriend, Skylar. How do you feel about it? Too bad your name is Skylar. I don't care.
Who cares? Idiot. Who even has the name? So, Action Preston says, at Quinn Henoch DPT. Thoughts on...
Thoughts?
Thoughts? Question? Thoughts?
Thoughts
on the Theragun and products like it.
Ooh, good.
And the effectiveness of soft tissue repair for athletes. Yes. A quick story. Once James and I were on, we were contracted to help a rebellion on planet DB5, and they were doing super. Yeah, they were doing super well. And then the enemy, at one point, we were like shooting the cannons. They're like, "They have a Theragun," and that was an 8-hour battle after Theragun. It's fucking
intense, right? Yeah.
Took out all the main battle tanks right away. What the fuck were we supposed to do about that?
They actually have a Theragun adapter thing that you can put on your jigsaw now.
Super cheap, more cost effective.
Yeah, the thing is like 300-ish.
600. Oh yeah, it's like 300.
You're
it's like the
forget to use the adapter. I don't feel any better.
That's well, if we're talking about breaking up tissue, there you go. Like that's the way you do it, like an actual jigsaw.
Yeah. So what do you think there?
Well, so you can throw on. So in the same bucket, you take a big bucket. You can throw in the Theragun. You can throw in the foam roller, the lacrosse ball, the softball.
You got to be a hater.
Well, I'm not done. The softball with the spikes, the foam roller with the spikes, the vibrating foam roller.
I hate the vibrating one.
Oh, okay. Okay, well there you go.
It's dumb.
It's all okay. It doesn't work. It all goes into the same bucket right now of placebo.
It's shit you can use on your vagina to get off.
That's a Sibian.
So yeah. Correct. Now, but I think they're going to have to change. I think so. This is kind of the talk in the rehab field is altering the definition of placebo. Because they're starting to say, well, placebo, there's a neurophysiological effect. Because if your perception changes, some type of thing is happening in your brain, you're feeling something. So that's a neurophysiological effect. That's a physiological effect. By definition, a placebo is not altering your physiology. Like, wait, placebo, neurophysiological, kind of synonymous. So when I say placebo, all of these things have a neurophysiological effect, and that's a fancy way of saying it changes the way that you feel. We don't understand the pathways. We don't know what the chemical change is or the connection to anything structural. There is zero evidence to support anything structural at the local level happening with that type of shit. So popping somebody with a Theragun, all the changes are happening up top in your head. No evidence to say that I'm mashing up your shit. Yes.
Have you ever tried foam rolling while you've been high, Dr. Quinn? That shit is amazing.
Okay.
That shit feels good.
Okay.
Something's happening.
You're confirming my point.
Okay.
So
2,000 pounds per square inch, or get high as a fucking kite. That shit feels good. It's changing something.
would it be fair to say that using something like the Theragun may make you feel better temporarily, but is not actually fixing anything? So if, let's say you're having like neck, shoulder pain, you Theragun it. It might feel okay now for the next hour, but then it's probably going to go back to being what it was very, very shortly.
Cue the Theragun again.
Correct. Well,
And no structural changes at that point have occurred.
exactly. But what happens, and because you got that quick dopamine fix, you're like, oh, this is my shit. You like it because it feels nice, but you also then think that you need it. This made me feel better so fast, I'd have to do more of it now. That's what I need. That's what I need. It's it's Theragun, it's ice, it's Normatex, it's all of this stuff. It can all kind of go into the same bucket right now because we don't understand the differences. If we had all this shit on the table in front of us, we can't differentiate what this one does compared to that. So if you want to, in my opinion, you can take a hot bath, you can have sex, you can do these other things.
You heard it from the man himself.
Sold.
Having mobility
I'm
issues,
throwing out all my foam
have
rollers
sex.
today. Honey, throw that shit out. We're going to have sex.
And it's
How do I fix this butt wink? Sex.
yeah.
Sex.
And again, if you're using that thing to like mitigate the fact that you feel like shit all the time because of your training, you need to adjust your training and not rely on these types of things. So Theragun has no evidence to support any of their claims.
And that shit's expensive.
I just got a vision of
You should just make your own fucking Theragun and sell it. $1,000.
Well,
approved by
listen,
you, and then
man.
everyone will be like, if he put it out, it must work because all the other ones don't
If
work.
they emailed me offering me like 75% share, I'd be like,
75.
you'd have to have me back on the
I got
show,
you.
and I'd be like, well, let's talk about this, guys.
Everything I said is true except for the Theragun. That shit is the bomb.
I got a business proposition. We make our own Theragun that has a
Dildo
attachment. That's where I was going.
Okay.
So like our custom-made Sibians
Wait, I think
or
they're-
like rabbits
That's
or whatever
definitely a
they're
thing
called.
already.
Yeah.
But we can do it scientifically. And
Yeah,
shit.
science and shit.
Marcos, you're instantly in charge of that division.
Got it.
You can
Check.
get like Ryobi or Black & Decker
I got
on
the
board.
blueprint.
Get
Yep.
like,
That's so sweet. Oh, what about this for the industrial ones? Fucking Caterpillar and Komatsu editions. Yo, this shit is from Japan.
Yo. Lifetime guarantee.
Komatsu edition's like 5,000 pounds of force. You're
Yeah.
like, are you sure about
Hydraulic
this?
press.
Like, the Japanese never lie, baby. You're in 5 pieces later. Like the next question's like, Quinn, I had a Komatsu dildo accident 5 years ago. The doctors finally put my hips back into one actual bone. Can I squat? Next question's really similar. Dr. Henoch. Does squatting over a year, even while periodizing load and volume, squat variant exercises, etc., cause inner groin pain?
Squatting for a day can cause inner groin pain if it's.
I think the question is inner groin pain just something that normally happens with squatting? I will tell you that a moralistic pain occurs when you're squatting. Like, why am I here? Don't I have any friends? Does God hate me?
This shit sucks.
That happened when we were in Finland. We were at the gym and I was doing squats. I got to my third set and I got adductor just could feel it like flare up. I had to stop.
Also,
happens.
before I
Should've
answer
pushed
that,
through.
to qualify when I'm being addressed as Dr. Quinn, that's Doctor of Physical Therapy, just so people know that. I'm not a real doctor.
Dr. Quinn Medicine.
Who really is anyway, right?
There's only one in this room.
That's my wife,
room-
Dr.
Yes.
Crystal, who's sitting back there doing
Also,
doctor
also
shit.
legally, if I were to market myself as a doctor and not qualify it as a PT, that's illegal, technically. I just, tidbits.
Yo,
fun
we,
facts.
we market ourselves as doctors all the time.
If,
Marcos,
if you're not a health,
everything.
but if you're not in the healthcare realm, then you can.
Marcos is
I'm in all the realms.
plant healthcare realm.
I'm the Dr.
Actually, you have
Strange
more
for this
freedom.
shit.
Yeah, no, you have more freedom if you have no actual license. You can call yourself whatever the fuck you want, really.
That's
and-
right.
Whoa, cool. Luckily, you are a doctor of pharmacokinetic dynamics.
Pow.
So,
You're welcome, America.
to the question,
Yeah, anyway.
groin pain. Yeah, you can get groin pain after squatting, just like you can get pain in your knee or somewhere else. It still kind of all comes back to the same thing. The dose was beyond your tissue's capacity to tolerate the stressor. Usually with muscular stuff, it's like almost like a protective mechanism, like your body's going to freak out a little bit. The adductors, I don't really know why, but they seem to be one of those neurologically based areas that just like will seize up on you almost to keep your body from doing the thing that you did previously that it didn't think it could handle, like the squatting with too much intensity or too much load. So your body just kind of puts the e-brake on you. And if that happens consistently, then you need to, how can I spread out the volume a little bit? How can I maybe just chop off a little bit on the top end intensity and then layer that on a little bit more incrementally from week to week? It's still this dose response. I mean, I'm going to sound like
incrementally. How does that intersect with Instagram at all?
Well, because you only video your top sets of the month, and the other sets, it's all about angles.
And then sometimes it's not even workouts, it's just ass selfies.
Here's a picture of my butthole.
Just
in Bible quote.
So you could post 29 of those, and then one day of the month, your top set of squats.
It's just like asshole, and they just like no thirst angle, just like high bar squats. You're like, oh, I didn't know that person lifted at all.
Thirst angle.
And it's like 80,000 followers for your asshole, and they're like, what's this lifting shit?
Then they desensitize to the asshole pics. Lifting video. Oh, that was normal. Okay, cool. Ooh. Next day, back to asshole. You're like, oh my god.
Thank God.
Yes.
Deep.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
More questions.
So go lighter and do better training. Read how much should I train from these guys?
It's a shitty book. Mostly James and I wrote it. All right. So Quinn Sowski.
Yo, it's Sowski.
Her real name is Sari Uski. She's from Finland. Oh, I'm going to read her in Finnish voice.
There you go.
This is a shitty voice. Sorry. Oh, I have so many. What the coach should read, study, and be able to coach client safely and keep them improving. What are the most books and audios, etc. My clients seem to have a slight seated imbalance. Sweet, not a word. Sweet, why not? Slight seated imbalances in the rotation and hip region. How to pinpoint what is the cause and how to address it.
So there's a couple questions there.
So let's just do this in normal, stupid mic impression voice. Did you get all that?
I think I maybe did. The books, I'm gonna, just because I'm on the show, just refer them to
Marcos's Guide of Plant Medicine.
Yeah,
it's a great book.
It's coming out soon. CBD for you and me.
Marcos's Guide to CBD. It's a one-word book. CBD.
Well, it was just books on progression, right? Not even about injuries or anything like that.
I have so many. What should coach read, study, and to be able to coach clients safely and keep them improving?
Yeah, so it sounds like scientific principles of strength training would be a good option.
I think Volume Landmark's book is also good there. Okay, how much should I train?
Yeah.
Because it really sets up like the how little is too little, how much is too much, and everything in between, how to progress, so on and so forth. Yeah.
I think sometimes people are looking for maybe blueprints, like what exercises, and that's kind of like if you lay down the principles, and you have a database of exercises you can throw in depending on the contents of the
cookie cutter. Like, how can I get this now?
Right.
How can I think about this deeply?
Sure. As far hip rotation, all that stuff it goes back. It's tough. Like, are you sitting there with a goniometer and measuring these things on these people? Probably not. So are you relying on your eyeball, and it kind of looks a little weird? And that's like where it's tough, because you could ask 5 different people looking at the same person and be like, well, I don't see anything. Oh, I kind of see something there.
I get videos like that all the time, man. People are like, Dr. Mike, can you look at my squat? I think like my right hip is totally off. And I get a video of a perfect high bar squat. I'm like, that looks great. They're like, no, it feels totally off. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, there's nothing I can do from a video.
Yeah.
Paralysis by analysis.
Yeah.
Totally. So it goes back to their goals. Is their goal to have 10 degrees of hip internal rotation, or is their goal to build muscle and to be strong and fit? So the movements will change range of motion. Like if you want somebody's hip to go into more flexion and you do squatting with load, that range of motion will improve over time to the potential that they have. So it's like, you're not going to change the bones, and you're not going to change the way that the joints are kind of aligned in the socket, but you can change the tolerance and extensibility of all the connective tissues around it over time. That just takes a long time. So like if you're seeing wonky things in a bilateral squat, regress them down. If these aren't high level athletes, like split squats are fine for that type of thing. Rear foot elevated, bilateral elevated, so both feet on a block, so your knee goes into a deficit, is like a deep squat on one side.
I program that for my clients a lot, and they fucking hate it.
Oh, it's brutal.
Bitch.
Yeah.
It's rough.
But to me, that's quote unquote mobility work, because you're going through full range of motion with load, and with a load that's putting more force through the tissues than any fucking Theragun could put. So if you're doing something like that,
the Dildo Gun 5000.
well, that's an internal,
Matsu.
different family of tools there, though.
It is a
Right?
family of tools, absolutely.
I'm just having like daydreams of dildos flopping around on a saw blade kind of thing.
I like that.
I look over at Quinn, and then I have like a quick flash of
My
like,
favorite, it's like we take Quinn to inspect these because he has to put his name on them, like the Komatsu factory, and we're like, okay, so you see this dildo gun? He's like, yep, and like we turn it on, like, and the dildo's like pointing out this way, and it's rotating. He's like, love it, okay. Another one, it's like kind of vibrates a little. He's like, got it. And one, it's just like the dildo's pointed like a helicopter blade, and it just rotates. Like, how the hell would somebody use that? You're like, you just don't have any imagination.
Well,
Next.
So then you have to try it out, or what's the deal?
You get it in first, and then it, shreds your shit up. But like you said, alters tissue.
Yeah.
You want a dildo rotator that finally changes you, like for real?
or if you just want to dick slap a circle of people. All in
True.
one
You're
shot.
like, what's up?
Do you ever want to do that? Just like start helicopter fisting, like in a crowd of people, when like if you're tired and
Fisting
anxious,
has
and
a
then
different
people
connotation here.
Yeah. Okay.
You mean punching people randomly?
Yeah, it's like spinning really fast with your arms outstretched with fists, and you're just taking out whoever's around you,
Old
like in a
lady,
crowded area where you keep getting bumped into.
I think that's bad for your shoulder mobility, Doc.
No, it's not, because you can lock it and you can retract your
There
scapula.
you go. That's better. Well, the first one you showed was kind of shitty form.
Well,
there you go.
you know-
there you go.
you know the deal.
All right.
Can
There you go.
I
Wow.
interject
It's
a
strong
question
fister.
here? Can we take a moment
Yeah,
from
be
Instagram?
selfish. Forget Instagram. James is all for you anyway.
How many people have you seen fuck themselves up using one of those club or hammer things?
I've not actually seen anybody fuck themselves up. I've seen them waste a lot of time. Like, they're like, well, what do you think about this? Yeah, it moves your shoulders around. It does that thing. I don't know. It's like,
been like resurging lately.
Sling
Yeah,
angle.
I think we all think that it's silly.
That's a new thing in jiu-jitsu is people like
what are those-
exclusively
what are
train with
they-
kettlebells and clubs.
yeah. So just like clubs, there's something else to it, though. They've got a name.
Maces.
Indian
Yeah.
club.
Maces, Indian clubs. Okay.
Yeah. Mace, the mace.
And some of them are heavy. And so
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
waiting for somebody to like sublux their
I'm
shoulder
sure.
at this
Yeah,
point.
no,
You know,
I'm
like-
sure it happens. It's just like you're gonna get good at the thing that you do a lot. So if your goal is to get good at swinging that thing around your head, then you'll get better at that.
Got to get ready for the Highlander games.
No, like maybe I was gonna say. Seriously though, like a thrower was in my head, like a hammer thrower. The different implements. It's like okay, but you could also just do.
Ironically,
that thing.
hammer throwers just push, press, and squat a lot.
Yeah. You can develop basic athletic qualities in the gym with our normal implements, and then you can impart those qualities into your specific sport.
That kind of thing it's like it's an avenue to express the strength or fitness that you already have. Very akin to like strongman. Like, is picking up the yoke going to make you a super jack strong person? Like maybe a little bit, but up to a point, right? And then you have to do regular stuff. I see that as like the same thing. Like, yeah, if you're a strong guy, you can whip it around and then you'll get better at it just from doing it, but it's not making you stronger at that point. You're just getting better.
Yeah, there's no amount of if in jiu-jitsu they use these things, and like if you weigh 135 pounds and you're 5'7", and you're using the fucking hammer bullshit mace thing, ain't nothing you can do that's going to make you as strong as a heavyweight. Fuck out of here.
Well,
If you
isn't it
squat,
too-
bench press, so
Yeah.
on and so forth, then
Well, even with something like that, aren't you really like trying to find the most efficient way to do it
Yes.
anyway? Like you're not
Absolutely.
trying to work
Yes.
hard with something like that.
you just get economical at the movement,
Yeah.
and then
It's like a
it
kipping
looks
pull-up.
cool.
it's just one of those. It falls into the category of training moves. This is by no means clear what it is designed to do, and or if it has a notion of, well, this is the goal. The pathways to it just don't intercept physiology at all. It's like, we're going to try to get this. It's like, how does that get you that? There's no answer to that. Or it's even like people just do it and they're like, I'm just doing these. And you're like, why? They're like, to get better. And you're like, yeah. How is this going to make you better? And they're like, Indian clubs. And you're like, that's not really an answer. You just repeated yourself.
Okay, but it's cool though when you see the slow motion video of like maybe like a half a rep and then it goes like faster.
Yes.
Like the 300 type of thing.
Yeah.
Like that's
Oh
sick.
man, anything in 300 type film
Yeah.
is so sweet.
It's so sweet.
Especially like a guy jacking off. He's like,
And then it's fast and then it like the blood spraying out.
yeah. Except it's semen.
I think that was in Max Payne first from the video
Really?
game.
Oh yeah, the video
then
That was a
game
big
movie.
thing in the game, yeah.
And then in the movie with, I think that
you're
was
right.
Mark Wahlberg. Yeah. It was like.
I never saw the movie. Was it good?
I never seen the movie either.
Most
But
video
Mark
game
Wahlberg's
movies
in
are-
it. I'm in.
There was a video game.
Yeah, it was sweet.
Pretty dope.
DT Strength says, Quinn, Is there any way for sure one can avoid injuries before they even occur? Time machine, definitely.
Honestly, it's a good question. In an ideal world, we would prevent any and all injuries. I think that we can reduce risk. Well, like, let's say you're Adrian Peterson, you take a helmet to the kneecap. Like, you can't prevent that. But it's still, there's a dose response to it. Like, if it was a mouse that had the helmet and it rammed into Adrian's knee, it probably wouldn't have done anything. So it's like, no, we can't prevent injuries, but we can try to reduce risk. And I think the best way to reduce risk is to level out the spikes in your training. So don't decondition, don't take long periods of time off. And if you do, if you get hurt, you go on vacation, whatever, you've got to take at least that much time to ramp back up to the previous bout of training. I would even say double that to be safe. I'm just kind of talking out of my ass right now, but just ramp up. I don't know. I can't stress that point enough. And that's probably the best way to reduce your injury risk.
So even like using the same example, taking a helmet to the knee, if you want to be like a stickler, you could say like, okay, well, you could influence your gameplay, your tactics, your reflexive abilities to read how things are happening. But at the same time, that requires like a superhuman amount of data processing at any point, and you're dealing with an unpredictable environment. You don't know how that guy's going to move. So it becomes like this, like, yeah, maybe, but it's almost impossible to do that.
It's a probabilities game, right?
Exactly.
Like anything else. Like in the game of football, when there's so many unpredictable variables, the probabilities are higher because you can't control what the other team is doing to a large extent. In training, I think it's a lot easier. Like powerlifters and weightlifters, their training is their sport, and these variables can be very controlled. The probabilities are lower if you control the variables, the stress variables to some extent. But you still can't prevent anything. I think that based on your past history, you kind of know what you can tolerate, and maybe you do that again. And if you come out unscathed again, I'm going to do a little bit more this time. And if you also, like, if you run into problems, it's not that big a deal. Just dose down a little bit until it goes away. I think that's the biggest thing too, is people initially have that pain and they don't change anything. So then it becomes this
fucking crazy.
Yeah. So it becomes this conditioned, yeah. Of course, it's a conditioned response now, months and months and months. Chronic pain, we're talking a much different animal than just acute pain that's subject to the inflammatory process that has a more predictable timeline of healing. Chronic pain has a much more of a psychosomatic, psychosocial element to it.
God damn it. That was the word I was trying to...
I know. I wanted to throw it out there, but I didn't want to look smart and make you look stupid.
Making the name James look stupid is the easiest.
Psychosomatic, you fuck.
I know. I was like,
you fucking idiot. You fucking fuck. You fuck.
There was a cue for me to remember that too, and it was the Prodigy song. I was like, Prodigy song, Prodigy song, Prodigy song. And I couldn't think of it.
Well, with cues like that, it doesn't surprise me.
Once we go somewhere, it's like psychosomatic, going insane.
So to the question, these are all good questions, by the way. Back to the question, it's training. Best way to reduce your injury risk, training.
One of the things I find interesting is related to that is people freak out. They take some time away and take some time off or something. And then they hate the intermediate times of ramping back up. They're like, I just want to be back in PR territory again. Like, even if it's not for the same reps, I want to handle the same weights. What I think, and I used to be like that for sure, got me hurt. There's another concept of momentum that if you start with really low RPEs with a certain technique, like squatting or whatever, and you build up slowly over time at submaximal loads, you start to get a real good technique momentum. You figure out your frequencies and your volumes really, really well. You get into this groove, and then you freight train past a shitload of PRs. Whereas if you ramp quickly, you might hit a PR or two and then kind of just fall apart. Momentum is great, so don't worry about starting. Like, I've literally posted squat videos. It's like 385 for sets of 8 after like hack squats. Someone's like, haven't you done 405 for sets of like a set of 10 after hack squats? I'm like, yes. They're like, so this isn't a PR? I'm like, yes. Like, so are you getting weaker? I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, this is week 2 of like an 8-week progression with a deload in the middle. And I'm going to hit 415 for 10s at the end of it. And they're like, so like, but isn't that violate overload? I'm like, overload is a spectrum. It's not one fucking number. And then you're like, oh wow, you don't actually know anything about training like this.
Yeah, and it's also just like big pictures overload.
Yeah.
Yes.
And like, overload doesn't mean every single session has to be linearly
every minute
more hard. Then you're just going to run out of room at some point.
I mean, you can look at it like a point, like if it's a steep incline, you're teetering on this balance point because you have no broad base. So if the ramp is more broad, you can just stand on it. You have balance. You're not going to just teeter-totter off. If you fall off the cliff, it's just as steep a drop as you were spiking up. I have a slide that's called Anecdotes of the Injured that I'm going to share with these people here in about 30 minutes, and it's just like that. I took time off, like post-injury max-out sessions. Just wanted to see where I'm at. I just wanted to test to see where I'm at. First of all, you're going to suck. Like you were hurt and you haven't been training. You're going to suck.
We have a webinar coming up about that.
And then you're going to feel worse about yourself. That's where you are right now, right?
Like, I can tell you suck. I can save you the news.
Or maybe you guys have done this too. Like you get hurt a little bit or you take maybe 2 weeks off. So it's not enough time for your fitness to decay, but your fatigue is totally gone. And you actually come back and maybe you PR or like you feel great for that 1 or 2 sessions. You're like, holy shit, that's the secret to training is not training.
Yep.
And then you,
West Side.
Yeah. And then you blast 3 or 4 days in a row and then it feels like you got run over by a fucking truck.
Yep.
And then now it's another week or 2 off because you can't train anymore. So it's just, again, it's these level out the spikes.
Damn.
Excellent advice.
Too much wisdom here. Let's get a stupid question.
Oh, got to bring it down.
It's not actually a
These
stupid
are real
question,
people,
but
though.
we'll
That's
dumb
mean.
it down.
That's mean.
If they follow the show, they know that.
Quinn's such a nice man. None of that shit here. Iron Court says, for all of you,
Oh, Court Papu?
mostly Marcos,
Is that New Zealand court?
Courtney Sky Smith. The fuck are you talking about?
Court Papu. We met her in Australia, but she runs the women's gym in New Zealand.
Well, I don't know, because
The girl with the huge traps.
Yeah, I can't tell if this maybe it's in pounds. All right, so she says, for all of you, what do you recommend for athletes, female clients that suffer from incontinence while deadlifting? I'll add squatting to that because a lot of it happens in squatting.
Cleans too.
Quinn, we'll let you touch on this last since you're going to provide an actual intellectual answer. First up, is it either Marcos, James, or myself? Who's going to say some bullshit?
I got it.
Popping.
Depends.
Oh, you literally
Not depends on the situation. You get depends.
Depends, underwear,
Put them shits
diapers. You're an adult, but you can't hold your shit in.
Don't pee-pee on my platform.
Yeah, keep that fucking shit away from me. I'm just going to, Marcos, before you knock this one out of the park, I love that shit. You know what I'm saying? You pee whatever you want, girl.
I'm with you.
Fucking freedom,
Sorry,
baby.
yeah.
You know?
Let it go.
The girls get all embarrassed about it. Like, oh, no, I peed. Like, girl, it's not my first rodeo. Fuck,
Let it go, like the Frozen song.
Yeah,
all for it.
100%, except if it comes out frozen. What the fuck?
I just
that
saw
shit
that
too.
movie.
Yeah, some Sub-Zero shit. Quinn.
Doc.
Is it my?
No, this is par for the course.
Real
She's
answer?
taking notes when she's watching. She's like, some Sub-Zero shit. Got it.
Drink less beer before you lift.
I thought you were gonna say drink it. I was like, damn,
Damn,
on
James.
camera? Okay,
Holistic
baby.
and shit. Bringing it back. I got it.
I've seen Waterworld.
So I actually
drinks it
just
too.
I just interviewed for the Clinical Athlete podcast, my podcast, which is much less funny.
Don't advertise your podcast in ours. That's
more
fucking
So I have a
intellectual.
podcast. It's called the Clinical Athlete Podcast. Subscribe, iTunes, Google Play. But we actually just interviewed a pelvic floor specialist, physical therapist, PhD, women's health.
Marcos is kind of like an informal pelvic floor specialist.
Okay.
Carry on.
But go on.
ahead. What's her
Okay.
name? I want to get her.
Her name
book,
is
too.
Meryl Alapatu. She works for the University of Florida. But anyway, but the topic was incontinence in athletes. And,
course
and
it's
a lot
from
of
Florida.
the conversation.
Marcos works for Jackson Heights University.
Oh, perfect. And a lot of the conversation was on this exact question. There is not a whole lot of really no evidence at all in regards to stress incontinence, when stress incontinence being like pressurized incontinence, not just something that's maybe more medically based, but like for lifters. But her thought echoed what my thought is, and I'm not a pelvic floor specialist by any means, but the
With those
pelvic
looks, you
More
should
of an
be, my
amateur,
friend.
huh?
I'm learning.
It's my dog.
Late bloomer.
Does that include the G spot?
Late bloomer.
Sir.
James, really? Really?
On
This
with
is
it,
safe
Quinn.
space.
But the pelvic floor musculature can be trained like any other muscle, and it's got thresholds. Now that muscular group is like more autonomic, so it doesn't like Kegel exercises where you can try to get your pelvic floor to contract consciously. Sure, you can do that, but that's not the function of the pelvic floor musculature. It's like more of your respiratory diaphragm, where it's supposed to reflexively turn on at certain points during activities or these types of things. So what you have to do is find the intensity threshold during training, or the movements, like the trigger movements, and then the trigger loads that cause the thing to happen, because there will be an inflection point, and then you've got to train just like anything else, just under that inflection point. That's when you can try to maybe create a conscious contraction, like close your holes, these types of like simple cues to hold in your pee.
Close your holes.
That was
That's
told
the
to me-
opposite of what we're encouraging on this
That's
podcast.
an anti-feminist
Well,
statement.
I'm coming on here with a different lens, you know?
I've never used lenses in that context, but that's interesting. I'm all for more kink.
So that's my simple question is you've just got to kind of like level it down a little bit. And it's going to kind of be an off and on process. But what you'll find is, the weight at which it usually happens, today it didn't happen, or it only happened on like a little bit, and usually it's a lot. Like you'll see changes like that. And
that better not happen when I'm there.
Well,
you mean the not happen?
Yeah, not happen.
Right.
Yeah. Close your
happen.
holes.
Yeah, open them up.
So
Frozen. Okay. Let it flow. Let it flow.
Can this episode be titled "Close Your Holes"?
Frozen. We can't. That's Disney's gonna shut us the fuck down for that shit, man.
Close your holes.
The Frozen stuff. Close your hole. I'm sure that's a Disney movie too. Yeah. It's a short educational guide.
Okay, pelvic floor, breathing, close your holes. Got it.
That was actually a really good answer.
Pretty much.
It was.
I got to listen to that podcast like 8 times.
There'll be a webinar on it too soon. Same woman. Another plug.
What's up, Scott?
ClinicalAthlete webinars. Oh.
50 minutes. Let's get one more question in and we'll get the fuck out of here.
How long was Max's? Oh, we've already gone longer?
Yeah, but Quinn's there's a lot of content here. Yes. Oh boy, somebody busted your dumb ass. Zap.
Shazam.
Dieter Olson. Oh my God, somebody named Dieter. This is European guy voice. Dr. Quinn, as someone who emphasizes bracing in a neutral spine for squatting, how frustrating is it to watch Dr. Mike do his little twerking routine?
No, they're busting your ass, not me.
Oh yeah. How frustrating is it to watch Dr. Mike do his little twerking routine prior to squatting? He loves talking about it, so I'm sure this question will shoot straight up to the top of the list, like I always shoot to the top of every list because my name is Dieter Olson. And I am from Europe.
I love this question.
Yeah.
Yeah, your squat is fucked, bro.
Super fucked.
Why do you do that?
Sexual. It's completely sexual.
So I want to talk about my beliefs on these types of things. And I think the way the question was phrased, it was like, you're an advocate of neutral spine as if neutral spine is a set point. And we have no definition for neutral spine. It doesn't mean anything really as a set point because everybody's curvature is different from the start. And then we know for a fact that during movements like the squat, the good morning, the kettlebell swing, anything where you're flexing at the hips, that is a coupled motion with lumbar flexion. So, but it's a natural movement. Butt wink is the natural coupled motion of the pelvis and the lower back to some extent on everybody at the bottom of their squat. Just like a sprinter who extends their hip, you're going to see their spine extend. It's a coupled motion. So neutral is a nebulous term in regards to a set point. It's more of a range or more of just this abstract concept. So is it affecting the performance of the lift? Like, are you folding your spine to an extent where you're getting folded by the weight, like you're not able to perform the movement? And is it recreating symptoms that you're complaining about when you see your spine move in a certain direction, like that hurts, and then you repeatedly do it under load? Okay, yeah, we'll change position to redistribute forces a little bit. But for your specific example, it doesn't seem like it's affecting your performance of the lift. I think what's happening is you're probably going, like visually, you start with a pretty significant amount of spinal extension, like at the top when you're standing there. And I think what probably happens, what we've seen in some 3D models, is that the more that you tilt your pelvis forward, so the more anterior pelvic tilt, the sooner you run into your hip flexion stopping point. So you just hit depth, like the end point of your hips, a little bit sooner, the more you arch. So what's probably happening is your body's just hitting that point, and then it's just accommodating a deeper position.
It just goes to pretty much neutral after that.
Yeah, totally. So I think when we see movement that happens in the middle of you're like, oh shit, you see the change in position and your eyes play tricks on you, you think that that's bad. But if you just look at where you end, you're like, if you just close your eyes,
I don't round my back at the bottom of a squat.
Exactly. You're like in that flat position.
Yep.
But you saw it change, and so in our mind, we're like, oh, that must be a bad thing. Yep. But I think that's the range. Like neutral is a range. We have some fluctuation, some wiggle room.
I think that a lot of people actually have the problem with me getting into a lordosis at all. I don't even think they're considering that I end up in kyphosis at the end.
It's funny how the pendulum is swung, right? It's like
totally. Now lordosis is bad.
Now
right?
lordosis is bad. Yeah.
It's like lordosis can only be bad mostly be bad if you're in like basically going facet to facet or something like that, and you're like experiencing trouble. Like I've never felt that in my entire life. Right. So, and like, you know, from a biomechanical standpoint of like, especially like tendon forces and things like that, and spinal compression, lordosis, because the anterior spinal ligament doesn't really allow herniation anteriorly, lordosis is fundamentally safer for the nerves of the spine than any degree of kyphosis that is high. So if you sort of go a little too lordotic, if it's not bothering you, no big deal. If you're too kyphotic, like that's probably some degree of concern, especially if you've got some symptoms.
You're probably more increasing risk that way than you are the other way. And I would say too, if you were, like you said, if you were sensitized to extension, so if spinal extension created symptoms, if you're just overly sensitized to it, I would probably change you to be less extended for a short period of time, let the tissues cool down, and then we could kind of work you back into whatever position you want to be in. And I'll also, like, without a belt, anecdotally for me, I arch a lot harder when I'm not wearing a belt because I feel I'm trying to get that form closure. Like I'm trying to lock down my bones a little bit to create a little bit of stability in like a rigid column. When I have that artificial pillar, which is the weightlifting belt, I feel like I can be a little bit more quote what people would consider neutral.
And low bar allows much better for that neutral. High bar is going to put you into more lordosis more often than
I think so too, because you've got that straight compression, so the lordosis actually distributes the forces a little bit better. So it's really just task, you know, it matters who you are, the individual plus a task plus the environment. So you've got to weigh those factors.
Boom, fuck you, Dieter. Fuck up out of here. Welcome to America, son.
I love having Quinn around.
Quinn's the shit. And Dieter, by the way, great question. Thanks for asking it. Quinn, if you were on the show more, people would learn more. But we're not really pro-learning here, are we? We're pro-mind expansion, bro. Stop learning and start really learning. You know what I'm saying?
People are going to give us the thumbs down on this one. This is too intellectual. More goat fucking.
More goat fucking jokes. Folks, Quinn, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks, brother. It's been awesome.
Marcos, what's up?
Quinn, what's your favorite animal?
The fucking blue-tailed skink.
A skank?
Yeah.
What's a skink?
Skink is a lizard, but that's not actually my favorite animal. But I had one as a kid. If you pull their tail, it rips off, and they go running, and then they grow a new one.
That's so crazy.
It's like on Men in Black, the guy that had got his head shot off, and then just grew a new one.
Great, James. You got any last final thoughts or words?
No, this is great. Like I said, I love having him around.
Huge fan.
Yeah, he always like great. If you guys don't follow him yet, you should follow him because he's wonderful at busting and debunking myths and fallacies, especially as they relate to like biomechanics, injury prevention, physical therapy. I can't say enough. If you are interested in those topics, this is the guy.
You've said so many nice things about me on this show.
I'm a fan. I'm telling you. I always have been.
It's going to be a little bit more in this hotel room. Scott the Sound Guy, sign us off, baby. Sports Scientist Podcast, we love you. Our next guest could be a man twice the size of Quinn, but with roughly one half the intellects, folks. See you next time.